Hi, welcome to Just Bake. For our first episode, we're going to do something a little different than what we want to do on our subscribed episodes. Today, we're going to make a Will You Be My Bridesmaid cupcake. So to start, we'll talk about a couple of staples once you subscribe to the channel. We'll talk about things that you're definitely going to need if you're going to be baking with us. One of the things, and I don't get paid to endorse this product, so I'll do it today. After today, we'll talk to them about some endorsements, but Baker's Joy is what you always want to use when you're baking. Every once in a while, you'll find it at Aldi or Save a Lot or wherever's your discount grocer, but Pam, Bacon Spray, Bake Ease, Cake Release, none of those things give you the release that Baker's Joy gives you. You can really take your cakes out of the oven, turn them out of the pan, it's warm, and they never stick. And it's as simple as that. Most of the time when I bake, I just use a square pan or a round pan. I don't traditionally use molds, but for this one I will, because this is going to actually be the skirt of the cake. It's okay to go ahead and invest in good cake pans because I've had this one for like 20 years. They never go out of style. They never stop working. The only reason that we're using this color icing today is because this happens to be the color that I have, but you can use any color that you want. So anytime you're going to use fondant, which is the thing that makes cakes pretty and it makes it look like porcelain, and it's what everybody wants when they call you and say, I want a cake that I saw on Cake Boss, it's because they're using fondant. So that's what we're going to use today. And you're going to start by making your cake, icing your cake smooth like I did. And you'll end up shaping it later, but just get a smooth ice, which is also really simple. I always use a round tip because it distributes the icing evenly. And for me, all I do is go ahead and make straight lines all the way down. It gives you coverage for the whole cake. And then if you want it all the way smooth, and it's just personal preference, you'll be able to use your cake spatula and your hot water to make it smooth. Your L-shaped cake spatula, that's something else that you're going to need if we're going to be baking together. So for today's cake, I said it was called a Will You Be My Bridesmaid cake because we do pay attention to trends and what people are doing. In our area, a lot of people are do-it-yourselfers. They want items that they can make themselves. They want it personal. They want to make an impact on friends and family. So if you're doing this whole bridesmaids proposal thing, that's a new thing for people my age, but it's a big thing for brides. So once you start with your iced cake, whatever shape you want to make it. If you don't have this pan, you can use a coffee cup because that's the exact shape of the of this. And this takes about, when I'm making cupcakes, I use a good scoop because I see people just buy ice cream scoops when I say buy scoop. But use a good scoop that you have a release on, the kind that you see in ice cream shops. So to make this size, it took about 2 scoops. So I would say that's 2 cupcakes. And I will price it accordingly. So if I do my cupcakes for $3 each, if I'm going to do a bridesmaid's cupcake, I would do it between $7 to $8. So, and I'm using fondant to cover the cake. Fondant, if you haven't already been exposed to it, is made of sugar. If you make it from scratch, which is always more tasty, you can make it with marshmallows, a little bit of butter, and then you're going to pop it in the microwave a couple of times until you get the consistency that you want. It dries hard like candy, and it's edible. I don't eat it. It has, to me, as you can see when I was molding it, it has the consistency of Play-Doh when it's fresh out of the pack or fresh out of the bowl when you make it. But once it dries, it's hard like candy and it crunches. It's a little difficult to chew. Some people eat it because they want the experience of eating the whole cake. Some people don't. But what it does for bakers is it gives you, like, when we ice the cake, it's not always smooth. This is, buttercream is made of butter. So it melts, it moves, it gives, it bends, it does things according to the temperature in the house or wherever you're serving the cakes. So if you use fondant, it's always going to be a smooth finish, smooth, seamless, and it's all going to be cohesive, one color, one thickness. I work in small batches. This roller, I have in about 3 different sizes. Some are wider, some are longer. some as wide as this table, and it just depends on what I'm working on, but it's easier for me to work with smaller things. So this is more my size, the size of my hands, the size that I can lift and move and roll and re-roll when I need to.
What do you like to make best? Like, do you like to bake cupcakes or cakes best?
I don't really have a preference as to what I like to bake more. Cupcakes are easier because they don't have to be exact. If you do 100 cupcakes, you can do 100 cupcakes, all different sizes, all different toppers, different colors even. If you have a wedding, if you're doing a wedding for somebody, with cupcakes you could do a lot more with flavors. They can have chocolate, strawberry, vanilla, lemon, and then they don't have the burden, because some people can never decide. They don't have the burden of trying to decide what to serve. So it has its pluses. There are people who can never even fathom the thought of having a wedding and not having cupcakes, but again, it's more personal, it's less expensive, because I can probably do 100 cupcakes with rosettes and toppers in 20-30 minutes. With cake, it's a little different because I'm measuring and leveling and shaving off and adding the same way I'm doing with this, but on a much bigger scale. So remember, this icing wasn't all the way smooth, but once I get the fondant on it, I can smooth it out the way that I want it. If you make this cake, and we'll talk about it more on the subscription, but if you make this cake, you'll be able to do what you want to do. I'm a girly girl. I like big dresses and frill and all of that, so I'm going to leave the train around the dress because it's pretty, but you can do it. Maybe I'll do one that's the exact size of the dress. Kind of just depends on the look that you're going for.
What is your favorite cake that you baked for someone?
I like the baby booty that looks like the little baby's butt, and it's actually in a pan similar to this. It's in the pan also that we make balls out of. So it kind of looks like a half, but they cut a basketball in half. That's the look the pan is. It looks like they cut a basketball in half, and you just have one half, and you turn the bottom side of the cake up and decorate it and make feet and a diaper, and it looks like a baby booty. That's been my favorite for a couple of years.
What is your first cake that you baked?
Oh, I'll show you a picture of it. The first cake, well, you know what? I don't remember the first cake that I made, but I remember the first wedding cake that I made, and I didn't even know at the time that I made it that I made wedding cakes. But a relative of mine was getting married, and we were sitting at a family function, and he says to my dad, I need her to make me a cake. And I made his wedding cake, not even knowing that it was going to be a business, less known my business, that it was something that I was going to start with. So the top of the skirt, the bottom of the skirt, you already saw that, was really self-explanatory. Cake pan, dome-shaped cake pan or coffee mug, whatever you have. My cake is like everybody else's. It bubbles in the middle when it cooks, and that has to do with the temperature of your oven. It has to do with the speed that the eggs cook. So it bubbled, I cut it off and made it smooth, iced it, and then covered it with fondant. For the top is fondant too, and I just made a heart, fondant heart. I told you before that fondant dries hard and brittle, kind of like a cookie. I use a normal cookie cutter, a circle cookie cutter, and I do the dips in the heart by hand, but you can use a heart-shaped cookie cutter. That'll probably work a little easier. Fondant takes about a day. Well, baking experts will probably tell you to give fondant 3 days to set. So when we make it in this state, you'll see that even though it's stiff, it still moves. It's a little flimsy. If you let it sit for three days, it's completely hard. It's molded the way you want it. So this one has not been quite 3 days for this one, but it'll let me show you what I want. What I did after I made the heart is I just laid it on the glass because I wanted it to have the curve that a top would have. And I'm going to put some supports in this one because it's not all the way firm yet. But ordinarily, I wouldn't have to do the supports. I would just do the heart that makes the top part of the dress so you can see it start to look like a bridesmaid. or you see it starting to look like a dress.
Do you remember like your very, very first cake for a client? Or was the story you told me your first cake for a client?
I remember that when I started doing cakes for customers, I was not actually doing these kind of cakes. I wasn't doing decorative cakes. I remember that when I was 23, I wanted to get married. And my dad said, I chose this cake, which I still love to this day. I still have a picture of it. This was, 25 years ago or so, but I wanted this cake. And I go to my dad and said, Dad, I saw this cake that I wanted for my wedding. And he looked at the cake, and I had a dad that didn't mind giving me whatever he had. But he looked at that cake and he said, that cake's $600. This was in like the 1990s. He said, that cake's $600, I think it was. He said, I will not do that, but because everybody loves your cakes anyway. And that was just baking cakes at home for family. So he wouldn't get the cake for me. But I met a woman. He told me that he would pay for me to take a cake decorating class, which I'm so glad he did. I met a woman who taught me how to decorate cakes in her garage, and I paid her $25 for the class. I'm glad you asked that question because that's a good point to talk about when we talk about, because I did end up going to culinary school, but this craft came from a lady teaching me in her garage then in Florissant how to bake cakes. When I went to culinary school, I guess I'll go back and tell my whole testimony and it'll make it make more sense. When I talked about my dad not buying a wedding cake for me, my dad actually taught me how to bake. He was in the Army and he was a cook in the Army, and he taught me how to make tea cakes. And my dad, his favorite movie was Imitation of Life. So every year, and this was before DVDs and before cable even, if you can imagine living a life without that. Every time Imitation of Life came on, I had to hear the story about Imitation of Life, and we made these tea cakes. Sometimes he called them cakes, sometimes he called them cookies, so I did too. I think it depended on the mood he was in. But anyway, he kept telling me that you're going to see this lady making cakes. She's standing in the window of a store on Park Avenue making pancakes, and it was like her grandmother's recipe or something. And she was a millionaire. Well, back then, black people weren't millionaires, and definitely not from making cakes. So I watched the movie every year with him, and every year I complained because I thought it was just something stupid. But after he died, I was sitting in my house one day, and I had been baking these cakes for, I don't know, probably 15, 16 years by then. But my dad, I was watching Imitation of Life like I did with him every year on his birthday. I'm watching the movie, and the lady started making pancakes, flipping the pancakes in the window. And it was like a light bulb clicked, and I was like, oh, that's what my dad was trying to tell me? Because he wasn't an entrepreneur, but he had a vision for me that I didn't even know, just not paying attention. So I think it probably was 5 or 6 years after he died, I realized that he was trying to tell me that I needed to be in the window making cakes. So at that moment, after I had done cakes for a long time, at that moment I decided to go to culinary school. Not because I felt like I needed it, but because I wanted my customers to know that I was serious about what I did. So I'm not going to say that I would or would not advise culinary school for anybody, but what I will say is this: at the time that I went, I waited for Lake Cordon Bleu to come into my area and took the class. It was $13,000 at the time. What you get in culinary school is a certification, just like any other university that you go to learn the science of cakes, but you don't get this craft. This craft is something that somebody, like what we're doing today, is something that somebody's going to teach you.
What do you love best about baking cakes or cupcakes?
I think it's kind of like along the lines of what I said. I think it's just my quiet time with my dad. And I think that in life, no matter what happens to us, we do what we're created to do. So no matter how many things I know how to do and how many things I'm good at, cake is kind of my staple. Cake keeps my bills paid. Cake makes me smile. Cake gives me some private time. And it gives me time to be creative. People love my cakes.
What is your favorite type of cake to eat?
Don't laugh. I like Sara Lee pound cakes. I like people have always asked me that when I stayed in Atlanta. They always ask, what's your favorite cake? Which tastes the best? I don't know what tastes the best because I don't care. With cake, I eat it, I taste it while I'm baking. So I know what the batter tastes like, I know what the sugar tastes like, I know what the vanilla flavoring tastes like. With icing, I don't do anything with the icing. I very seldom even eat it, so I don't care. I don't have a preference. I just eat what I like, and I like plain vanilla, no icing. That's what I get for pound cake. Heavy cake, no icing.
Have you ever baked pound cake?
Yes. I don't think that there's any type of cake that I have not baked.
What's the difference between a pound cake and an original cake?
Eggs.
So the pound cake doesn't have eggs?
The pound cake has more eggs. So with my typical cake, I use 3 to 4 eggs. With the pound cake, I'm using 6 to 8 easily. That's what gets the density of the cake. So what I'm doing now is when I rolled out the fondant for the dress and for the hearts, I had to use powdered sugar. You saw me put that on the table. I used the powdered sugar to keep the fondant from sticking to the table so I can move it when I needed to move it. And now that I'm done with it, I'm cleaning the fondant off of the dress. So that's how you see. That's why you see me. And this is just cold water and a paintbrush. You'll want to invest in some good paintbrushes because you'll need those.
What is your favorite icing to put on top of a cake?
Well, it depends on if I'm doing a lot of cupcakes, for a wedding. I prefer whipped cream. It's cheaper when you talk about business costs. It's cheaper and it's lighter, so it's easier on my hands to this fondant is moving because it's not as stiff as I would like to be, so I'll put another foundation in there in a minute.
What is the best icing to smooth on a cake? Like the smoothest icing?
Smoothest icing. I don't think that there is any one more than the other. Buttercream, which is what we use today. And I make buttercream. I can't use that. Buttercream is literally what it says. It's creamed butter and powdered sugar. It's soft. It has a good taste. And it moves with you. It moves with the cake.
How many cakes have you made over the years?
Wow. I have no idea. And I probably should go and look. Even when I was coming up with pictures for this page and just looking at all of the cakes, trying to choose a good cake, trying to have a memory of cakes, I have absolutely no idea. I think that right now I'm at about 300 cakes a year, 300 customers a year for cakes.
300 customers?
300 cakes a year is about where I am.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What are one of the cakes that you love to make for your clients?
I'll tell you, I just remember what my first cake was, and I'll show you a picture of it. It was a cake for my daughter, Jasmine, when around the time it was her birthday. I think she was 5 or something. And I remember we had the party at Chuck E. Cheese. And the movie Aladdin had come out, but there was at that time, there was like cake toppers, like what I'm doing now, things to prop up the cake. You couldn't find that anywhere. But I made a cake for her birthday. The year before that, I think I had made a Big Bird cake for her because she was into Sesame Street. And then the year after that, I made that Princess Jasmine cake, and I think that was the thing that made it solid for me.
What is your favorite event that you've made or been to?
Now, I don't have a favorite event. I have events that I like once a year doing Enesia Lane's not-for-profit because I'm worth it. I like doing the decorations for that. I've had some customers that I've learned how to love, and so whatever event they're hosting or they're having, I am excited to do it for them, but I don't have anything that I had just, my life was changed. I do a fundraiser every year for the American Cancer Society. I have a good time with that, but I don't know that that's my favorite. So once you get your, I'm going to stop with this one because I didn't let the heart set, but once you get your cake made, again, I cleaned off all of the powdered sugar with water, and then after it dries, I'm going to go over it with some, when the water dries or evaporates, it's going to just kind of leave a dull finish like what you saw when we first started. But I'll come back over it with some vegetable oil and it'll shine like this, and shine like glass.
How long does it take the fondant to dry?
For shapes like this, for this heart, we want to leave 3 days.
3 days?
Mm-hmm. The fondant needs to dry for 3 days. But for, if I wasn't doing the shape, like if I wasn't doing this top, the bottom, that's fine as it is. It's fine to eat right now.
This cake is beautiful.
It's pretty.
So, what are these for?
Those are just the samples that I was showing you. This is how it comes out of the pan. That's the shape that I use. And then I was just showing you that you ice the cake because the fondant will need something to adhere to. So you'll ice the cake smooth before you put the fondant on it.
This is what the cake looks like.
Mm-hmm.
It looks just like a bride dress.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm extra, so I would do frills and roses and all kinds of stuff. Probably a note, if it were my bridesmaid, if I were asking, proposing, that they call it a bridesmaid proposal. If I were doing that to one of my people, I would probably have plates with their names on it, forks for them to eat out of. And you see how simple this was? This took maybe 10 minutes, right? The only thing that I would have done is let the heart dry a little, and I'll take this one off, and then I'll show you a finished product later. Any other questions?
That's it.
All right, I'll see you on the subscription channel. Bye.